Good morning, everybody, and welcome to today's webinar. My name is Sukhman Najjar, and today I will be moderating the session with our Advocate Series. Really excited to have our second version of our Advocate Series today, where we are joined by not only our CEO, Alex Fedosov, but also by 1World Advocates David Schlesinger, founder of Tripod Advisors, and previously an editor-in-chief at Reuters, and Daniella Franchin, founder of DFC Consulting, and previously a VP of sales at Reuters. Our 1World Advocates will be discussing the state of the industry, trends, outlooks for the near and long-term future, and more. And we'll also be ending with a Q&A session for anyone to ask direct questions to us. Additionally, we're also going to be joined by our regional managers, Wally, representing Africa, Julia, representing Europe, and Robin, representing business development in North America. So we'll also be providing some additional updates on 1World, where we are, and anything that's happening between us. And I'd like to proceed with moving it over to Alex. Please, Alex.
Yes, good morning, everybody. Sukhan, thank you for organizing this. As always, I want to remind our attendees, people who joined our webinar, about the company, what we do, and tell you about some interesting events happening at this very moment. So please, let's go to the next slide. Yeah, in our industry in digital media, it's really an interesting space because on one side, it's booming. More and more people are spending time online. There are a lot of new projects, new sites, new media holdings. But at the same time, there are some chronic issues in this industry. Publishers are still struggling to generate revenue, and COVID-19, of course, contributed to the problem. And there is a definitely challenge with the retention because of social media. Users that are doing things online, including all these publisher websites, they do not have any incentives for their activities most of the time. And in many cases have bad user experience because of advertising is implemented in the old-fashioned way. And most importantly, the source of the money, advertisers are not happy either, which is not surprising anymore because the traditional banner ads are very low efficiency. And also advertising campaigns usually do not include any feedback from the audiences. It's just very old-fashioned push type of campaigns. Buy me, buy me, buy me, which is bad user experience and bad ROI. In the light of this, let's go to the next slide. What we believe is that engagement is the king and every solution should start with engagement. Imagine this, if you have an article and you're reading content, for example, in this case, in San Francisco Examiner, and the article is supplemented with the interactive unit. Let's start clicking, please, Suk. Yeah, you will see there's an interactive component. Yeah, you see right here, the poll question or quiz or some other interactive format that supplements the article. And also it includes, let's click again, native organic advertising. So the whole thing, if you click one more time, please, it essentially becomes an interactive media unit, which includes a modular article, which could be provided by publisher or delivered through 1World network, which is accompanied by contextual poll and contextual ad. And as a result, if you click one more time, please, you will see that all the metrics go up. It's become a really nice organic experience. There's a high click-through rate. People spend more time on the site, they interact, and there's an overall increase in engagement and advertising revenue. So let's go to the next one. Now that you refreshed your picture of how 1World product looks like on the publisher side, we call it interactive media unit. I'd like to remind that there are many different formats of these interactive media units. We have polls, quizzes, debates, surveys, and open API. So customers can create their own experiences and their own flows. So that's engagement part. On the back end, 1World has very powerful analytical tools. And you can see that we track everything that's happening in terms of engagement. We know all the statistics, all the metrics. We build intelligence about targeting people based on their responses and their activities. And we implemented blockchain-based identity verification so people can register and actually earn points by doing things online. And later, these points can be redeemed into something material or virtual type of assets. So that allows to do much better targeting and as a result, promote solutions much better. So we essentially combine advertising, engagement, and research into one seamless package. Let's go to the next one. and how we benefit all participants of this equation. So we have obviously publishers, advertisers, and audiences. These are the summaries of some recent case studies where you can see how each of these participants gain from using 1World platform. Publishers increase their performance overall, not just for pages that include our widgets, but the journal retention usually goes up to 22 or 30%. And there is a case study with Newsweek where we have millions of people voting monthly and the additional revenue generated. Advertisers increase the efficiency of their campaigns. The click-through rate could be increased from 2x to all the way to 9x, depending on how experience is built. And we have a recent case study with Babylon project, which will be covered by one of my colleagues. And for audiences, of course, yeah, they benefit by gaining some points and incentives by doing things online. So we call it win-win-win formula because everybody participating gains at the end. Let's go next, please. And this is our team. Some of the folks are on the call today, but just to give you an idea, it's really spread across the globe. We have our business team, mostly in North America, engineering team in Europe, many advisors and supporters and investors around the world. So really happy to have such a diversified and skillful team to accomplish the major goals that our company has. Let's go next. And there are some partnerships that we built over these years of company existence, both on technology side and the business side. You can see some big names like Amazon Moments, IBM Watson, in the advertising space, a company called Adapix, in addition to Google and Audigent. And recently we are doing a lot of partnerships in the what we call Web 3.0, like Algorand, Liquid, and Pillar. So quite diversified set. Let's go next. And let's talk about Web 3.0 for a little bit. I think this is fundamental change that's happening today. We go from internet of information to the internet of value, because incentives and things that people do online that get rewarded, they absolutely change the landscape and relationships between publishers, users, and advertisers. So what does it mean? Let's go next slide. And there are some recent events in the industry that many of you know, but I just want to remind that we move into this new Web 3.0 type of blockchain-based technologies and applications as we speak. That's literally happening this month, and many announcements happened in October. For example, PayPal already announced that they're going to be used crypto payments, and it will become very common, not only in North America, but around the world. Verizon Media made a move to create the newsroom solution based on the blockchain, so for verifiability of the content and copyright management. And Kraken and Avanti certified in the state of Wyoming as crypto plus fiat bank charters. So this all creates the infrastructure where people can do things online, gain something, and use their assets in an easy and convenient way, very much like they use traditional payment tools and e-commerce today. Let's go to the next one. Yeah, this is a partnership we announced a few months ago, but I just want to remind everybody that this year, 1World signed the agreement with Algorand, which is a MIT-rooted technology firm, probably the best in North America, providing blockchain platform for all kind of applications. There are many companies already using it, and 1World is going to combine its native advertising platform and Algorand blockchain platform for performing transactions in the Web 3.0 style. Let's go next. And finally, since many people here are coming from Republic, and we will have recording published on Republic and some other places of online presence of 1World, I keep monitoring the industry and sharing some interesting news that might be relevant to us. So just last week, we heard this very interesting acquisition case that Spotify, the company that most of you know well, bought a podcast engagement and advertising platform called Megaphone for $235 million. This company is just 5 years old. It's based on Virginia, and they produce really nice product. Conceptually, this is very, very similar to what 1World is doing, because they have a nice niche application which provides additional value to the big player and brings this combination of engagement and advertising together as a solution to increase revenue and, of course, increase engagement. So with all of that, I just want to summarize that we built our product over years as a native advertising platform. We're moving towards Web 3.0 incentives-based world, and our sector is doing really well with a lot of amazing events happening. So I think strategically we're very well positioned for further growth, both in developing more features in our product and getting more business. And our team members will tell you more about this, please.
Great. Thank you very much, Alex. Appreciate that. And without further ado, I'd like to introduce our advocates. So we'll start with introducing David Schlesinger. David is a veteran of the media space and has served as an editor-in-chief and chairman at Reuters, among many other positions. David, we're really excited to ask you questions, but before we go and do that, can you just give us a little brief rundown on your history and where you are, where you came from and where you are today?
Yeah, thanks very much. It's so great to be here. I started life really as a China specialist, and my first jobs in journalism were in Taiwan, Hong Kong, Beijing, studying China as it was beginning to develop. I then took on more and more global roles. I first ran the Americas for Reuters, and then I became the global editor-in-chief, running all of the journalism at Reuters. So around the world through many ups and downs in the global economy, wars, earthquakes, coups, crashes, the whole gamut of things. And that gave me an appreciation of how publishers, who of course were some of our key clients, use the news, how they then use the news to engage with their audiences. I left 8 years ago after being the chairman of Thomson Reuters China, so I went back to my China roots. And for the past 8 years, I've been a consultant working both in the China space and the media space, and then helping a number of startups.
Great, awesome, pleasure to have you. And next we have Daniella Franchin, who most recently served as the VP of Sales for Reuters in Latin America, and she's also the founder of DF Consulting. Daniella, it's a pleasure to have you with us. Could you give us some more of a background on your history?
Sure. Thank you so much for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be involved in this amazing project. So my experience, I spent 20 years of my life at Reuters. So I started previously, I basically spent like 2 years in Bloomberg. So I've been on the information and the services industry for a while, but my path in Reuters was very interesting, not only because it was a long one, but also gave me the opportunity to live the experience outside, right? The living overseas. So most part of these years I spent in Brazil and covering Latin America from Mexico to the South, but I did spend 2 years covering the US media market. So I was responsible for selling and redistributing what David was producing to clients like Wall Street Journal, New York Times, CNN, and so on, the broadcasters and online clients as well. So in certain point of the career, they found interesting to develop the market in Latin America. So they invited me to come back, but with a different position to develop this marketplace, right? So to start the media business in the region. So we started very small, we don't even had at that time news in Portuguese. We were like just redistributing Reuters news in English. But then with Dave's teams and other business development people, we found it interesting to develop the market with both Portuguese and Spanish languages. So my job was not only to approach those publishers, but also to find out what type of information they were looking for, right? So how we will start to engage this audience in the local language. So in the past, basically 7 years, I was taking care of this business, redistributing not only the news, but also video, of course, and data like financial information as well to the portals. And I was responsible for a team that was, engaged with these partners. So that was my job. So after that, after so many years, Thomson acquired Reuters. There were so many changes in there. So I decided to move on and launched my own consulting, which is pretty much my work is pretty much helping startups and companies that want to do business in Brazil or Latin America, and they don't know how to start. Sometimes they don't even have an office locally, but they just need to start launching the business. So the idea about this consulting business was to help those companies. That's where 1World came in, and I started to talk about it with Alex. So that's pretty much a summary of everything.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Danielle. I appreciate that. And now we're going to move on to a panel discussion. So we're going to spend the next few minutes posing a few questions to our panel, including Alex as well, and having a great conversation on certain points. Again, for our attendees, please feel free to, if you have any add-on questions or anything that you would like to ask us directly, using the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen and submitting questions. We'll be sure to get to them towards the end of today's webinar. So today, the first question I'd like to start with would be for you, David. So you've had a long time at Reuters, you spent time in the Americas and East Asia, and you got to work alongside many publishers. Let's start with just one major trend or shift that you've seen among publishers. It can be in Asia, Europe, or globally.
Gosh, only one. So I think the key one, and I think the one that really fits best with today's presentation, is the move to digitalization, which has been happening over the past years. But COVID, I think, has been the final push that has made digitalization the key trend in publishing today. There is no other distribution platform today than digital. So how you use that, how you engage audiences through that, how you keep audiences, and then most importantly, how do you monetize in this new world? I think that's, if you ask me to go to only one theme, that would be the one, is how digitalization has changed the industry, forced people to think of new ways of production, new ways of engagement, new ways of monetization.
Great. And how about number two? Oh, I won't keep you at one.
If digitalization is the number one, then I think the number two thing we have to talk about is fragmentation. And that's a direct result of the digital world, of the internet world, but it is so serious. If you just think about your own consumption today, it's totally fragmented. I mean, I wake up in the morning, I look at half a dozen newsletters, and I might surf 6 sites, and I might go to 2 or 3 different social media sites for news, and then maybe I'll go to 1 or 2 of the traditional players, but it's all over the place. I used to belong to one organization, but I certainly am not loyal to one news source now. I'm a total slut. Total, and I am not alone. How do you deal with that if you are a publisher? How do you deal with what is your audience if each member of that audience is actually going to 5, 7, 10, 15 other sources in the course of the day and believing only half of them? So that's a key issue. And I think what Alex was talking about earlier is one of the things that 1World can help, is that building that tie between the publisher and the audience, where there's actually a reason to come back to a certain site, not just for the news, but because you're part of a community, because you actually have earned some tokens there, because you find it interesting, because you find it fun to deal with it. I mean, that is a key advantage that 1World has in this world of fragmentation, because everybody is struggling with this problem. Everybody is struggling with the fact that relationships are now complicated. They are not monogamous news relationships. They're very complicated, they're very ephemeral, they're very fragmented.
Yeah, that's a really great point. I mean, I think many of us use multiple sources as our consumption for news and media. So we're seeing a really big shift in that. Alex, would you like to jump on that portion of the conversation in terms of how fragmented the industry is and where 1World slides in?
Yes, absolutely. And I agree with Dave that it's very fragmented and complicated. And we want not only to embrace these relationships, but also to build a new version of it, to make it actually a great user experience but also clear incentive logic that people can understand. So every time they do something, they know the outcome. For example, if I come onto the site and looking at the news, I can contribute actually a question to this, not only answer to what's already written by somebody else. I can share with my network and also be incentivized for that. And especially during COVID-19 era, people all looking for the ways to make money online, big or small, and what might consider to be small in Western world might be pretty significant in other countries. So all these activities are not just about consuming news and earning incentives. Sometimes it might be actually making a living from this engagement online and contributions online. That's where I see a huge potential, because we definitely know that the media mechanisms are going to change, maybe for better, because the old world is mostly the print publications transition to digital, but there's some digital only projects. But I think the kind of hybrid of traditional media and social network and news feeds is going to emerge into some new, completely different formats where people can earn on different sites, but they can still come to one place and redeem and benefit from what they're doing. So it's going to be a very interesting world. I'm looking forward to it.
Absolutely. And Daniella, talking about the distribution of companies and how, fragmented they are, how does Brazil and Latin America look like in terms of how, publishers and other media companies are distributed? Are they centralized? Are they fragmented? Are they similar to elsewhere?
Yeah, no, they are very centralized. In fact, the market concentration they are in the hands of few families in Latin America, I guess, I would say. What the biggest challenge is, we have like a huge region. So you can imagine from Mexico to the south, and this happens literally in every country of Latin America. So few major media outlets in each of these countries with different characteristics, of course. But a lot of smaller regions, or other regions and smaller newspapers and websites and magazines, they were trying to reinvent themselves over this so many years, and they were never successful because the market was so centralized, and it is still very centralized. So what happened is that many independent outlets are starting to show up, especially during the crisis, but they are not surviving because the media budget will go to the centralized ones, right? So that's the current scenario.
Got it, totally. And just piggybacking off of the conversation that Alex and David just left off of, we're seeing a lot of interest in like engagement tools, right? Like I believe that publishers are beginning to realize that their readers shouldn't be necessarily only looked at readers, but as users, right? And if they're a user that's coming back to your website, how do you actually make your website sticky, make it engaging, and retain that user to come back again? And we're seeing tools, not only like 1World, but other tools out there that are existing. David or Alex or anyone, Daniella, you can jump on this. Do you think that publications out there should view their readers just like Facebook does with their users, where they're providing, a swarm of tools that allow that user to become engaged, show their opinion, disseminate knowledge, but also engage in discourse with their users?
Yeah, I mean, I would actually quarrel with the word user. I think a third trend that I would point to would be the democratization of news and information. And so it's beyond being a user, they're actually participants. And so any tool that allows someone to actually be a participant in the creation of news, in the dissemination of news, in the discussion of news is important. So if you look at 1World, for example, and someone actually casts a vote in a poll, well, that poll then becomes information in itself, the result of that poll. If there's a debate module and someone participates in a debate, that person is participating in the creation of new content. So actually, it's more than just using the site, it's actually participating in the site. And I think what publishers have to do now is wrestle with the new relationship. It used to be so one way. I was the king of Reuters. I decided what the news was on that day because I was the editor-in-chief, and we pushed it down to people. You can't push it to people anymore. They have their own views, they have other sources. They want to participate in the creation of whatever this new world of information is.
Agree. Yeah.
Distinction between user. Yeah, go for it, Daniel. Sorry.
No, sorry to interrupt. No, it's interesting what David is saying is exactly my feeling. So I think interactive tools, I hear a lot from publishers, they are revisiting content mix. They are looking for, more online events. So everything that is more interactive, because what happened is, imagine you have like, especially during the COVID, I think, people are like, trying to find news about health, about the pandemic and everything. But in some point, you are stuck at home. You also want to see something else, right? Or you want to just be interested in some entertainment and other type of information. So you are a lot exposed on social media all the time during this crisis. But you also need to read what's going on besides the pandemic. So I saw a lot of people saying, my subscriptions are even increasing nowadays because not only people are seeking health news, but also they want to interact and know what's going on in other things. They want to have fun, right? They just don't want to hear just about COVID. So I think these interactive tools allow the users to have this experience. So let's talk about COVID, but also let me see this video. Let me talk about, let me see some other things, other categories, right? So there is actually an opportunity as well.
Absolutely. And Alex, 1World started as a tool, as an application directly for the user, where we would pose questions related to current events and trends that are happening, and let users download our app and engage. And then the transition, the pivot was made to publications directly. Why is engagement or interactivity important to media sites? Like, what's the one reason in the many conversations that we've had, onboarding publishers, why is that important to them, and why should they be open to the opportunity of having a tool like ours?
Yeah, there's many reasons actually, because one is they want to know their customer, and when they engaged and they incentivized to register, that's a big event for publishers. As soon as they know the email address and some other information about the visitor, which, as Dave said, will turn participants, that's immediately much more valuable information. They can send newsletters, they can invite to some projects, they can interact with these people, offer them new products and services. So that's one. Second is definitely leads to longer time on the site and more impressions, right? More page views, which means additional revenue. But overall, it's definitely the trend, right? That establishing relationships between publishers and their visitors or participants. And it's still very early. I think we're going to see many phases in this conversion, right? And this evolution of relationships. So there's so many benefits that it's almost will be impossible not to have relationship with your audience, right? And still be in business in a few years. It's either they're going to adopt all this incentive and engagement programs or disappear, because I think the whole landscape of media is going to be different.
Absolutely. Great. Well, I think that is good enough for now. I want to be able to pose some more questions at the end of today's webinar, but that was a great conversation. Thank you everyone for being able to give your input on these questions here. I'd like to transition to Robin, who will give us a few updates for North America and his efforts in terms of business development sales with 1World. Robin?
Great, thank you, Suk. Hi, everyone. Again, my name is Robin. I'm the Director of Business Development for North America and Sales. And I think the best way for me to begin my regional updates is sort of give you an understanding of where publishers are today. If you want to go to the next slide, Suk. Great. So in my efforts, in the publisher development efforts, I'm finding publishers are facing resource constraints. They just don't have enough people to do the work that's necessary to get optimized and to be optimal. Before COVID, CPM rates were great. And of course, when COVID hit, lower ad rates came down just because advertisers didn't know really how to react at that time. However, since that time, there's been a slow climb back, and rates are stabilizing and people are getting a foothold of where they're at and what they are looking to do. And then, of course, some are flat or have declining revenue just because of all the resource, just the mix of problems that COVID presented. Publishers, in terms of what they're looking to do to solve, is they're looking for unique solutions to engage their audiences. They're looking for unique ad inventory. A lot of solution providers out in the space are looking to essentially repurpose their inventory and try to monetize it for more. They want to mitigate a lot of risk, and so the ability to find solutions that have unique ad inventory add to their yield is very appealing. They're constantly testing and existing monetization strategies, and they're also looking for higher value advertising campaigns. So a lot of what I see here echoes what David said in terms of digitalization and the move towards digital, fragmentation, as well as democratization. And all this in terms of the problems that publishers are facing, as well as the way they're looking to solve, is all to figure out a way to ride the wave or figure out a way to flow with the trend. You want to go to the next slide? Now, while they're doing all this, they're also facing a potential future where cookies that allowed publishers and advertisers to basically target their audiences are going to be disappearing. Along with this, and the reason why they're going to be disappearing is a lot of the data breaches have raised concern for customers about the data that's being collected about them. And so cookies, for the most part, have been the way advertisers have been able to track. If you want to go to the next slide. So questions arise like, who's collecting the data? How are they using the data? And is data being handled keeping the privacy compliances in mind, right? And so those are big concerns for a lot of people, as well as the people that are trying to protect people's privacy. Want to go to the next slide, Sue? Great. So this is basically, led to the programmatic industry trying to prioritize and protect people's privacy. GDPR has led the way, right? The General Data Protection Regulation. Facebook and Google have also made voluntary changes. And in 2 years, roughly, Google Chrome, which accounts for 62% of browsing, has announced a 2-year transition to completely go away from collecting cookies. Go to the next slide, Sue. So what's that impact, right? So on publishers, your exchanges, your supply side platforms won't be able to recognize users on websites in the way they can by using third parties today, right? They just don't know who their users are. DMPs, you've heard this concept of creating audiences and targeting audiences. Well, that's not going to be available. So you're not able to make like lookalike audiences to target those consumers. So in the end, a lot of the value of targeting is going to disappear. And so advertisers really are trying to figure out how they're going to spend their dollars wisely. On advertisers, right? So the advertisers used to depend on third-party data to target their reach to relevant users. And so with this, you just can't target your users. And so the future, when you're not able to target your customers and your users and being able to advertise, is really murky, and is what everybody's looking to solve. You want to go to the next slide, Sue? This is where 1World fits in. I think it's perfectly situated to solve for the cookieless environment, as well as provide publishers a solution to engage with their consumers, as we've all spoken to. When you're able to interact with your users, have them hone in on content, allow the advertisers to know the users are actually engaged and viewable, is immensely valuable for them, right? In addition to that, the publishers are able to monetize and create higher revenue from that high-valued user generating the high-valued impressions. In addition to this solution is the retention platform that 1World has. With the advent of the token economy and the ability to incentivize consumers to not only register, they're able to get their publishers to re-engage with content that's appealing to them. Not only that, you have the data that's collected, first-party data, as well as data on the polls, quizzes, trivia that these particular consumers are answering to be able to make better marketing and content creation decisions is all, to me, is just a perfect storm and a perfect solution for publishers to latch onto at a certain level within their monetization and digitization strategy, which I think is perfect. Go to the next slide. So now what? So here at 1World, especially in North America, we're really vertical focused. And this goes to what David mentioned earlier about fragmentation. I've been in this industry long enough to know that, with cookies disappearing and the inability to target consumers, advertisers at our high level need to go where their consumers are at a very aggregate understanding of who they are. And so news and media vertical is a perfect example. You have sites that have sections such as business, entertainment, sports. We all know what type of consumer goes to those sections. So with the limited solutions to be able to address the cookieless environment, at least for today, and IDing those consumers, at a high level, these advertisers know what type content is being displayed and what type of advertising would probably make sense to target those particular sections. So vertical focus here in North America is where we're headed. And we're headed in other verticals as well, which I'll share in further slides. Go back one more. Thank you. And however, in the now, with cookies still here, we're able to monetize using our third-party programmatic revenue partners. And so not only going after vertical focused niches like news and media, but we're also going after here in North America, high volume publishers where we can derive revenue for 1World while building our portfolio in the particular verticals. Go to the next slide, Sue. Great. So with respect to news and media, this is our Newsweek example. Newsweek is one of our flagship publishers. This is a phenomenally successful poll. As you see here, it's a targeted article on the coronavirus, a contextually relevant poll to the article, and then of course, brand creative, which is the ad at the bottom. This particular poll, 1.75 million votes, roughly 530,000 unique voters. And what you'll notice is these voters like to engage 3 times more than just answering the question. So they'll actually scroll through this particular widget as well as answer the particular poll again, which is evident here. In addition to that, of course, this drives dwell time, which I like to call time on site, which is great for a lot of these publishers because they want to keep their users on site looking at more content, more ads, which results in more monetization and revenue. And this particular campaign over the course of 6 weeks deployment generated an incremental revenue rate of $65,000, which is icing on top of the cake of what they're currently doing today, which is another important variable for a lot of these publishers. They don't want to cannibalize their existing efforts, right? And a lot of publishers also want additional ad inventory, and I think that's what 1World can offer. So this is a great example and one we show a lot of publishers and get them real excited about our solution. Next slide. So the verticals that we're going after, event-based conferences, as Daniella had mentioned at a high level. We do have some successful case studies where we're able to really key in on urgency as well as reach in terms of finding the audiences for these events and conferences. FinTech, the financial vertical is very active in the digital acquisition space. Principal Bank was one of our advertisers. Cannabis, as you guys know here in North America, Canada, I believe in other parts of the world, they're starting to really open up. There's an immense amount of money in those particular verticals, and those particular verticals are emerging, as well as crypto, and they don't really know how to market. And they're going after the conventional and traditional routes. And with our solution here at 1World, with our IMU being able to actually perform at higher click-through rates, and for the particular ads and for the polls, it's very appealing for these folks. And a big one is consumer acquisition as it relates to, at least here in North America, dispensaries. A lot of these folks are looking to create lists so they can remarket and retarget. And so it's super important. You can go to the next slide. And so this is a great example of the advertising campaign that we'd put together. In this particular case, this is a very native, contextually relevant poll plus ad. In this particular case, the poll is actually related to the advertiser. So we've wrapped this up in a campaign package to where we could actually drive this to our particular landing page to then collect registration data. And we've had significant results with this. In fact, I'll share that with you on the next slide. This particular campaign where we hosted a Babylon, so it was called the Babylon Project, it was a hackathon. The plan was to generate 1,000 consumer participant signups. Our actual campaign produced 50% of the contribution of that goal, and the actual number of registration was 3,000. So 1World was the best performer, and it's evident that the rich media units and the engagement that we can create, can produce 4 times better than Google, 5 times better than Facebook, and 10 times better than Instagram. So, working with the verticals and these type of advertising type of packages and mediums, we can really increase advertiser value as well as publisher revenue. And I think we have a perfect solution for that. And so that's what we're doing here in the North American region. If anybody has any questions.
Thank you, Robin. Very much appreciated.
Yep.
We'll move on to Wally. Wally is our regional manager for the continent of Africa. Wally, please join us and give an introduction to yourself.
All right, thank you, Suk. Thank you, everybody. If you could move to the next slide. Just going to take the next 5 minutes to talk about what we've been doing in the Africa region since the beginning of the year. I think we really kicked things off in the second quarter when, everywhere in the world, everybody was getting locked down. There was a lot of anxiety, on the part of the publishers. Has been mentioned, CPMs were going down, even though, visit to the traffic was going up. The publishers were focusing on value-added tech innovation that could help them generate more revenue. So we started talking about 1World at the time, and we quickly made some progress and success in the space. We focused on 4 countries, and we've had, including Nigeria, Ghana, Kenya, and South Africa, and those are the 4 biggest economies in sub-Saharan Africa. And we've, in Nigeria especially, we've made a lot of progress. I think we have, 4 of the top 5 publishers now using the 1World platform. We are able to generate close to 100 million impressions across this publisher network, which is going to now be a very valuable asset that we can put in front of brands and advertisers. Next page. Just focusing on one of them. So Punch is, the number 1 publisher in that region. And I think it was also, Punch, we got on Punch first in the region. And to date, you can see the kind of analytics that we're pulling out of Punch. Could be viewed as relatively small compared to some of the numbers that you see out of the US. But for that region, we're doing pretty well. Over 18 million polls are viewed in terms of impression created over the last few months, with close to 1 million votes already placed. And you can see the engagement rate there, which is second to revenue, this is what publishers are really looking for. And advertisers alike. Engagement leads to spending more time on the platform, leads to loyalty, and return by those readers. You can see the categories where we're pulling. Not surprisingly, there's a lot of following in politics. Sport is a big one, and news is another big area. So we try to focus our polls in those categories to drive engagement and drive loyalty in a sense from the publisher's perspective. The next slide, which is the last one, is just telling you about how we're viewing this. Now that we've established a good network of publishers, what we're now doing from a 1World perspective and from a perspective of the publishers is helping them to monetize those impressions and engagement that we're generating on the platform. And we're seeing these emerging verticals come out in the region. The telco space is an interesting one because all the engagement that we've had so far with brands in that space suggests that there's fierce competition, just like you find in the US. The players spend a lot of money pushing their product. They are very interested in engagement, and they're interested in engagement that leads to product placement that can drive a lot of subscriptions and engagement with their product. So we're seeing some interesting, we're having some interesting conversations there that will lead to adoption before the end of the year. Another interesting space is consumer goods. These guys are interested in driving sales, and they're interested in driving sales through engagement. And the 1World platform, as you've heard, helps to drive engagement. They are also interested in driving sales, and one other area is through education. They have some novel products that are coming to the market. The 1World tool gives them ample opportunity to actually educate consumers to making purchase decisions, and that can lead to repeat purchases. So that we're also seeing those interesting dynamics. The next one is sport betting. Sport betting in the region is huge. It's very aspirational. It doesn't matter what class of earning you are. You see sport betting as your avenue to become a millionaire overnight. So there's a lot of interest in that. And a lot of sport betting companies wants to drive acquisition of customers, and we're seeing and after acquisition they want to drive transactions, deposits and transactions, and we're seeing that they're saying that they can drive a lot of that through the 1World interactive media unit. And then the last one is fintech. There's a lot of focus on fintech around digital payment, cryptocurrency and blockchain in the region. And we're seeing a lot of activities around that area. There's a lot of investment also coming in from the West, from China into that space. So there's suddenly there's big spend power with players in that space. What they're also looking for is how to educate consumers. There's a lot of education required for people to adopt digital payments, cryptocurrency, and blockchain. So there's looking at this as a way to do that, and then subsequently drive adoption. So, like I said, 1World is very well placed in the region. We have a valuable and rich network of publishers. We're just layering our advertising offers across these verticals, and we're very confident that over the next several months we're going to have a lot of case studies and success stories from this region to share in subsequent webinars. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Waller, for those updates. And next we have Julia, who's our regional manager for Europe. Julia?
Yes, hello everyone. So my name is Julia, and I work as an operations manager with 1World, as well as the account manager and regional manager. So I have some feedback from both the operational side of things and from our clients, which I talked to extensively. So let me share my findings this this month from working with them. So first slide, thank you, Suk. Yeah, first slide is our publishers network within the region. I see the trend that they're more, they have a clustered nature. Most of our publishers, as we have them now, are in the financial sector. Finance UA, Minfin, Economist UA, they're all financial focused publishers. But also we are really focusing right now in acquiring some general news websites as well, such as Observatel or Kurier Lubelski, which is a Polish publisher, which is a part of Polska Media Group. Also, we are talking and launching the project with Block Leaders, which is a blockchain-related website based in Ireland. Yeah, also I wanted to mention that as David I think mentioned, there is a trend where the readers become contributors for the new content for the publisher. For example, one of the websites we're working with, Minfin, they're running a lot of polls to collect the feedback from their readers on how they use financial instruments, how do they make the payment in their day-to-day life, and then they use the answers, these materials, to prepare new articles as soon as they have a certain amount of votes. So for them to make an article, they usually collect about 5,000 votes for each poll or quiz. Also, one of the interesting projects I wanted to mention is the one we have on this slide, is a project with Observatel, where they had an internal project which was targeted to, which was created in order to promote online, like creating their own educational projects for general consumers. And here you can see the article is in Russian, but the article is about a tool which you can use to create your own course and earn money from that. And so when the reader completes a quiz, which is integrated into this article, they are redirected to the landing page where they can do just that. And the project is still ongoing, so I will share the findings and the results of this project on our next webinar, hopefully. Next slide, please. Yeah, thank you. Yes, and for the advertisers this month, it's everything about the marriage between the supply and demand, because as I mentioned, most of our publishers are in the financial sector, Minfin, Finance, Economist UA, and as I noticed, we have a lot of interest from the banks for webinar events, promotion of their webinar events and other products, but also we've noticed a huge interest in the cryptocurrency platforms, like exchanges, wallets, these kinds of services. And the highlight of it is our partnership with Binance, which we have already signed. We're preparing an ad campaign for them, a native ad campaign where we would promote the platform by placing the polls which are related to the cryptocurrencies, or with these tools, for example, how interested are you, like what instruments do you prefer to use for investment, like investing in stock or investing in cryptocurrencies, like this sort of questions. And when the user votes, they're redirected also to the Binance's landing page. And luckily enough, when we were discussing like this opportunity with the advertiser, all of the publishers they've mentioned were already our partners. We are already working with them. So like this match between, as I mentioned, between the supply and demand makes us, helps us to launch these campaigns comfortably and fast for our advertisers. And that's basically it. Does anyone have any questions? Sorry, Suk, I deleted the slides there from the previous presentation, I think. They're not in the
No
deck.
problem. Sounds good. Thank you very much, Julie. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
So we have just a few minutes left. There is one question that I like to pose to both David, Daniela, and Alex as well, just as a follow-up to our discussion earlier, just because I think it's important, and I think both of you especially can provide an important, perspective in terms of the editorial side and the commercial side of the business. COVID-19 obviously has had an impact across the board, but particularly publishers have been impacted in very unique ways. Can each of you talk about the short-term effects and the long-term effects from COVID? What are things that we might be seeing, as a draft of the COVID, even post-COVID, and what might be something that exists years from now as a result of it?
I mean, I think that's a good question. I think there are a couple of things that have happened. Number one, I think news consumption has really gone up during COVID. So publishers have a chance to grab and keep new audience. The challenge is to keep them. And this is where engagement is important. This is where that continued relationship is important. There's the danger that once the immediate crisis passes, people will go back to their old habits. But for the moment, consumption's way up. So that's number one. Number two, I'll go back to what I said at the beginning, digitalization. COVID has pushed the digitalization button, both in terms of distribution, but also in terms of the production. People are distributed, they can do it from anywhere, they're using new tools. That's something that's going to have long-term effects, and that's not going away.
Great. And Daniela, from someone who's previously been a VP of sales of a big name like Reuters, what changes do you think a publication is seeing that might be in the immediate and that might be, lasting their whole, time frame of being published in the future?
I'm sorry, I was on mute. Yeah, I guess one thing that is very clear is that whatever has a direct impact on the new reality we are living, we will achieve greater engagement, I guess. So with the audience. So things like being creative, being, revisiting the content mix, as I said before, new platforms. You have to have a new innovative platform to engage. Not only the content, but you have to be able to engage with this platform. What else? People are looking for more trusted information, right? Information they can really trust, not fake news. So subscriptions are going, although the crisis is affecting, of course, the companies. I see that many of them report increase in the number of subscriptions, which is amazing as well. And in terms of reducing costs and other things they have to do because of this new scenario, I think having the right platform will actually help them. And as long as you can show them that you have something that will optimize and their resources, and we will also, in the same time, let them make more money. This is actually what the client's looking for. So I see the scenario of post-COVID, something like, changing topics, migrating to new platforms, people getting more digital, and interacting even more, and finding ways. The brands are finding different ways to reinvent themselves. I would like to give an example. The most important advertised that has like thousands of page views during the crisis was a brewery that posted an advertising talking about their shift. They switched between producing beers to producing alcohol in gel. So they engage with the audience, with the subject they were looking for, but at the brand, everybody noticed about the brewery. Everybody was talking about. So I guess you have to find new ways of engaging your brand with the current situation, right? So
yeah,
that would be my suggestion.
absolutely. And then Alex, I'd like to change the question a bit and pose it to you. Considering that there's a big transition to digitization, excuse me, are publishers more or less reluctant to be open to blockchain solutions?
They definitely intrigued and interested. We see more and more being accepted, right, and at least considering it. Of course, they need dedication. I think many people mentioned today, we need to educate, we need to show success stories, and we should make it really easy for them to adopt. Because if they talk to them in language of incentives and retention, they absolutely understand it. And then it's just a matter of tools. So how exactly to accomplish this? It's very much like back in the Web 1.0 revolution. People don't need to know what TCP/IP is, right, and how it works. They just need to know that there's a website, there's online presence, which gives them benefits, and here's how it works, right, to make it easy. Here's how I can create one website and post information. Very similar now during Web 3.0 transition, we just need to give publishers really simple tools saying, okay, you want to engage your audience? Here's how, here's a solution for you. It's all packaged together. You just deploy it and we'll take care of all the technology behind the scenes. You just benefit from results.
Great, awesome. Well, I think that sums it up for us today. It was a pleasure to have everyone on. It's always great to bring this advocate series to get more minds in the mix and to have an awesome discussion like we just had today. Thank you very much, David and Daniella and the rest of the 1World team for joining us. And we look forward to having another webinar in the next month or so to do a full update on our 1World team side on any developments on our side. So thank you very much again, and we look forward to seeing you next time.
Thank you, Suk. Thanks, everybody.